Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Wanted to do a quick video here on Mount Washington in New Hampshire. It's certainly a location with some pretty extreme weather from time to time, and it looks like this weekend, mainly kind of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, going to see a pretty extreme cold event setting up for the Northeast, and Mount Washington, like many times in the past, is going to be kind of ground zero for some pretty extreme weather. So what's so special about Mount Washington here in New Hampshire is that it is probably one of the, if not the windiest places on the face of the earth. It set a world record back on April 12th, 1934, with a recorded wind speed of 231 miles per hour. It routinely gets some pretty extreme wind and temperature values, and there's a couple different reasons for that. So I want to take a look at that here in the video, not just what makes this location so unique, but also look at the event here this weekend. So what we see here again is kind of the summit of Mount Washington with the observatory up there where they record some of these pretty incredible measurements and some of the most extreme on the face of the earth, really. When we look at what's going to come here this weekend, for Friday night, they're expecting a low of actual air temperature somewhere around 45 degrees below zero. Winds are going to start at a measly 70 to 90 miles per hour and increase up to somewhere around 100 to 110 miles per hour. So just think about what that is. That's, close to EF1, EF2 tornado. You're talking about close to a major hurricane, and that's on top of a mountain. And on top of that, with temperatures below 45 degrees, below zero, we're looking at wind chill values probably somewhere between negative 100 and negative 110 degrees. I can't even imagine that, but I think that would certainly count in the category of extreme weather. So what makes Mount Washington such a source of extreme weather? What this looks at is kind of just a rough and a little bit outdated kind of map looking at how weather systems move across the United States. And so what this really shows is that for weather, you look at the jet stream, and so that's certainly way up above the surface, and that's looking at low pressure systems that move across the United States. And so when we see here, we can see that a lot of the jet stream, and so the jet stream, it really moves from west to east. And so we can see here, this looks at kind of a 30-year average of low pressure systems that track across the United States. And we can see that there's kind of a bullseye here where many of them cross on the west coast. And then certainly here across the northeast, we see another bullseye where low pressure systems and the jet stream tend to set up and really move over these areas. And so Mount Washington, being kind of right in this area, certainly is at the epicenter for some pretty extreme weather, given these weather systems and low pressures that move over the area. Now, really the next thing that we want to look at that I think is a bigger contributor is really the geography of New Hampshire, and again, where Mount Washington is. So Mount Washington is part of the Appalachian Mountains that run really from Georgia all the way up into eastern Canada and across most of the eastern United States. That's certainly the largest mountain range. So this looks at a map of New Hampshire here, and right here, this is Mount Washington, right here. And if we look at the topography, one of the reasons why we get such a funneling of the wind is that we have mountains here and we have mountains here. And so it creates a little bit of a funnel that moves through this area. Again, these winds coming out of the west and really moving across and funneling in to Mount Washington right here. And Mount Washington, certainly a tall mountain, but only 6,288 feet. So by no means the highest mountain peak. It's not even the highest mountain peak east of the Mississippi River. It, in fact, doesn't even make the top 10. So it's not that it's necessarily the highest point, but certainly given where weather systems move across the U.S., and certainly the funneling given the geography of the area, that's what leads to Mount Washington having such a history of extreme weather, and certainly setting up here this weekend as well. Example of some of the extreme weather conditions and extreme high winds that you can see at the summit of Mount Washington. Just pretty incredible winds. Wow. Some of the meteorology behind this event this weekend. So what this is showing right here is this is looking at anything in kind of these lighter pink colors. This is really a low pressure system right here. And then these darker colors really here, this is high pressure, kind of this more reddish color. And what we can see is that between high pressure and low pressure, you get these real close isobars. And whenever you see this really, really close gradient, that's a really tight pressure gradient there. And so we see some really extreme winds coming through this area. And so that's really what this is showing here. When we look at basically the modeled wind speed here, we can see here's kind of that jet stream rounding the base of this low pressure over the high pressure here in the northwest and the southeast of the U.S. And so that's really what we're looking at here. And so as we move forward with time this weekend, we can see that that jet stream really picks up speed. And whenever you see really these kind of yellowish colors right in here, that's really the fastest wind speed. So we're looking at, over 100 knots here, kind of above the surface up in the atmosphere. So some pretty extreme winds there, certainly. And again, when we go back and we look at these height anomalies, this is showing kind of the path of that low pressure. It kind of dips down into the northeast, and we can see just really how tight these pressure gradients are all along here. And so that's going to correspond with pretty extreme changes in pressure with only a little bit of distance, and some pretty extreme wind speeds as well. We can see that this high pressure really builds in here over much of the western third of the U.S., and then we've got that low pressure system here. So that's really going to funnel these winds through the area here, and going to create a pretty significant event for us. When we look at some of these temperatures here, again, we can kind of see across the northeast. When we move forward in time, we can see that cold air rushing in to the northeast there. And when we get kind of onto really kind of Saturday night, it looks like definitely probably Friday night into Saturday is going to be some of the coldest air right here. And so we've got, again, let me move forward in time. Mount Washington is going to be right here. And so we can see some of these colder temperatures. When we actually zoom in a little bit further, we can see that, let me update that. So Mount Washington is going to be kind of right here. And then if we move forward in time with the temperatures, you can see that cold air move in. And you can see that, it's projecting temperatures somewhere on the order of, close to negative 30. Again, this is going to be a little bit lower. Obviously, we get some height with Mount Washington, and that's where we get some of those extreme, near negative 45-degree temperatures. So that's a little bit about the event here setting up. Certainly something that I find interesting. Again, don't have too many mountains here in North Texas, but not necessarily a huge, winter weather guy, but seeing this event and some of the historic records that could fall, whether it be the low temperature, the record is negative 47 that was recorded on Mount Washington, so very possibly could break that record. I don't know that we're going to break the record with that wind speed that was recorded of 231 miles an hour. So that one may be safe, but certainly would be a lot of wind that's going to be up there on Mount Washington. So hope this was helpful. Again, I'll certainly do more of these videos as time permits and look at different kind of weather phenomenons. But while we're waiting for spring, thought I'd take a look at some extreme weather on Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Thanks for watching.